Greetings students, this is a class on your clinical methods. Here we will be teaching you how to examine a patient, how to examine the ear, how to examine the nose and how to examine the throat. First I will be examining the ear. Remember, for each step you need to counsel the patient, explain each step, take permission before you proceed to examine the part to be examined. Before examining any part of ENT, two instruments are of paramount importance. One is this adjustable head mirror, which is having an adjustable headband. It is having a concave mirror, which is having its outer diameter to be of 89 mm and inner eyepiece diameter of 19 mm. It has got a focal length of 25 cm. And this is our Boule's lamp. The Boule's lamp has got a convex lens at its opening, which is having a focal length of 45 cm. It is supposed to be remain at a distance of 30 cm from that of the examiner. Here my head ring, adjustable head mirror is to be placed with the eye opening onto my right eye like this. This helps me to having a good pointed vision of the part to be examined, whereas the concave mirror reflecting the light of the Boule's lamp will illuminate the deepest part that I want to examine. First is examination of the right ear. Both the ears are to be examined, but for demonstration purpose I am examining only the right ear of the patient. In such a situation, what I do is that I turn the head to me, I adjust the light so that it focuses on the ear. First, what I need to know is whether there is any presence of scar, fistula or any other swelling present in and around the ear. Then what I do is I do tragal tenderness to know whether the patient is having any otitis externa. Masted tenderness is something that I do by pressing over the masted. As I press on the masted, I look at the patient to see whether he winces in pain or not. After I have examined the external part of the nose, what I do now is examining the external auditory canal without the speculum. I elevate the pinna upwards and backwards to straighten up the external auditory canal, whereby I can see the external auditory canal as also the tympanic membrane. First, I have examined the external auditory canal without the speculum. Now, after I have examined without the speculum, I will be taking a speculum to examine inside the ear and also the tympanic membrane. To remember that left hand is to be used always in ENT to stabilize the part to be examined, and the right hand is to be used for instrumentation. So long I am having the speculum, I am holding the speculum, I will be holding the speculum in my right hand. I again focus on the right ear. I pull the pinna upwards and backwards and I place the speculum and I examine inside the ear. If it so happens that further I need to clean the external auditory canal, I have to use a Jobson horn probe. So I will be showing you shortly how to examine the external auditory canal using the Jobson horn probe. But till then, next comes the examination with the tuning fork. This is our tuning fork. This is the parallel face. I will be submitting another full video on tuning fork examination. But for doing the basics, this is how it needs to be done. I am showing you. First, I strike it on the olecranon process at the junction of upper 1/3 and the lower 2/3, and then I place it about 2 cm lateral to the external auditory canal opening, and I ask the patient whether he can keep it. So he is saying that he is having sound louder and the anterior along the external auditory canal, there is air conduction is more than when it is placed in the over the mastoid. So in him, in the right ear, the air conduction is more than bone conduction. Similarly, this ear is needs also to be tested. Now I am having the Jobson horn probe. I After doing the Rennie test for both the ear and writing down the Rennie tests results, you will be needing to do the Weber test. Following we await the absolute bone conduction test. Both the videos will be uploaded in the video concerning the tuning fork tests of the ear. Please watch it out for better understanding of the topic. Show you how it is needs to be used for oral toilet. This is a wisp of cotton that I take. I spun it around the probe end of the Jobson horn oral probe. And after I have spun it around the probe end of the Jobson horn probe, I focus it on the ear. Light is focused. Now this hand is to be used for stabilization of the part to be examined. So this is how I stabilize my oral speculum and I put my Jobson horn probe through it to do a oral toileting of the external auditory canal. So after this, I will be doing test for facial nerve function, test for vestibular nerve function. One thing that needs to be done efficiently is fistula test. What is fistula test? Fistula test is a method to establish whether there is presence of any fistula between the middle and the inner ear. And how do we do it? One method of doing it is closing the tragus like this and alternatively pressing it inside and then releasing it. So I am closing the tragus, pressing it inside and then releasing it. By pressing the tragus inward, what happens is that by after I do the fistula test, whenever I press the tragus inwards, there is elevation of the and this elevated pressure is transmitted through the third window, the fistulous communication between the inner and the middle ear. So fistula test is a test to establish whether there is presence of any fistula in between the middle and the inner ear, and whenever the fistula test is proceeding, the patient experiences vertigo and there is development of the nystagmus. So this completes our examination of the ear. Then comes the examination of the nose. In examination of the nose, what we do is we do first palpation and inspection of the external nose. Then I do is I elevate the nasal tip, examine it without the use of the speculum. I use the nasal speculum. This is the Thubicum nasal speculum. Teacher is going to ask you how you are going to hold it. See, you are holding it like this, then you are rotating it, and then the last two fingers are going medial to it, and the middle finger is remaining lateral to it, and you are holding it like this. So once again, you hold it like this, you rotate it, you close the inner last two fingers, the middle finger is outside, and the part is stabilized by the index and the thumb. You close it, you place it inside the nose and it opens up by the spring mechanism. So you can see all the parts inside the ear, except remember, you never can examine the roof of the nose because the roof of the nose is not visualized easily. Only in one special condition you get to visualize the roof of the nose, that is the atrophic rhinitis. So if the teacher asks you What are the parts you can see with the using the speculum? You can see the septum, you can see the lateral wall, you can see the floor of the nose, but never the roof of the nose, unless of course the patient is suffering from atrophic rhinitis. After you have examined the nose, next comes examining the nasal patency. Shashna, 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 Shashna. So, Shashna, this is cotton based test. The movement of the cotton inside and outward on nasal respiration suggests that there is no nasal obstruction. Another method of doing this nasal patency test is using this lux forceps, placing it inside the nose. The movement of the cotton inside and outward on nasal respiration suggests that there is no nasal obstruction. Another method of doing this nasal patency test is using this lux forceps. It should be lux tongue depressor. I erroneously said it to be forceps, but it should be lux tongue depressor. Placing it inside the nose, asking the patient to breathe out, and you know by visualizing the amount of fogging on the lung speculum whether there is any obstruction in the nose or not. If there is less fogging, on any side of the nose, you know that that part is obstructed. But nasal obstruction doesn't necessarily establishes that he is suffering from a DNS. He may be suffering from tumor, he may be suffering from polyp, any condition that is obstructing the flow of air through the nose. So, whether the patient is having an obstruction due to the DNS or not is elicited by doing a Portal's test. How do we do the Portal's test? If any part is obstructed, suppose his left part is obstructed. If his left part is obstructed, what I do is I pull the cheek outwards and upwards laterally, and what happens is that it opens up the nasal valve, improving nasal respiration if the patient is having a deviation of the nasal septum, that too in the region of the nasal valve. So, first, the Cotton-based test establishes that he is having nasal obstruction. The Cotton test establishes whether the patient is having any deviation at the level of the nasal valve. Both the tests need to be done if you are given a case of nasal septal deviation of the nose. After this, what you do is you test for the tenderness of the sinuses. This is how, by pressing on the canine fossa, you test for the maxillary sinuses. You press in between the medial canthus to test for the ethmoid tenderness. Mostly the anterior ethmoids are going to be elicited. Frontal sinus tenderness is elicited by tapping on the frontal sinus or pressing on the floor of the frontal sinus. There is another test of transillumination of the sinuses, which is not very commonly done, but definitely you must be knowing if the teacher is asking you the question. Another test that is important for nasal polyposis is probe test. Whenever you see a mass coming out from the nose, you don't know whether it is a edematous turbinate, you don't know whether it is a mass, a malignant or neoplastic mass, and you also don't know if it is a polyp. Polyp in a edematous mucosa from the nose and the paranasal air sinuses. They are less sensitive and doesn't bleed to touch. So what you do, again you need this Jobson probe. You spun a cotton at the tip of it, and what you do, if mass is coming out from the nose, you palpate it like this and you turn it over the Jobson probe all around. If it is a polyp, you find it to be soft, insensitive to the touch, pale in color, doesn't bleed to touch, and you can cross the probe all around without any bony lateral attachment. Why? Because occasionally the turbinates, they become edematous, to differentiate a pure polyp from a edematous turbinate, you do this 360-degree rotation, and in case of turbinate, due to this bony attachment, you cannot really pass around the lateral wall of the nose. So this differentiates between a polyp from a edematous turbinate. Also, a malignant or neoplastic mass will bleed to touch and it won't be sensitive. This finishes our nasal part, and then comes.
Here I am again wrong. It should be that malignant or neoplastic mass, they bleed to touch and they are sensitive to touch, whereas polyp is insensitive to touch.
The oral part for examination. For oral part, another part of the nose you need to do is you examine the post nasal space examination. The nose part is remaining, you need to do a post nasal space examination. What you need to do is you need to do the post nasal space examination by using the post nasal space mirror. I will be showing you the mirror. What you need to do is that you need to hit the mirror before you proceed for the examination of the post nasal space. So this is our PNS mirror. It has got a mirror surface, back is still, and it is having this curvature. You have to hold it in a pen-like fashion. You have to hit the mirror, only the mirror, not the back surface, so that fog doesn't accumulate during the time of examination. Other methods of defogging the mirror is you can insert it in the defogging solution like Savlon.
It can also be inserted in warm water, taking care that the water is not that heated to cause burn by transmitting the temperature onto the posterior nasal space mirror at the time of examination.
Another instrument that you need is the tongue depressor. You ask the patient to open the mouth, breathe through the nose.
Patient will have to open the mouth initially, breathe through the mouth so that you can place the speculum, space the mirror properly, following which at the time of examination he needs to breathe through the nose so that the nasopharyngeal isthmus opens up to give you a proper visualization of the nasopharyngeal space. Students must learn to draw the post-nasal space. It is nicely given in all the books.
It's very important, breathe through the nose. For when the patient is breathing through the nose, the nasopharyngeal isthmus opens up and you can have a proper visualization of the posterior nasal space. Again, you need to explain the method to the patient, take permission. For each and every method, you need to take permission. You have to counsel the patient before you proceed for the examination. I press it downwards, the tongue, and mukti shas nebe. I press my mirror just behind the uvula. I rotate this mirror and I see all the walls of the post nasal space, that is the nasopharynx. To note, other methods are there. Other methods are there to examine the nasopharynx. What are the other methods? One is definitely the endoscopes. Nasal endoscopes, you can jolly well examine the post-nasal space of the nasopharynx. Other two methods, they are commonly employed when the patient is under general anesthesia. You can retract the soft palate by using the rubber catheter, or you can directly do a digital palpation. You put it in your finger inside the mouth and you directly palpate what is there inside the nasopharynx. Then comes oral examination. In oral examination, two things are mostly required. One is this tongue blade or tongue depressor, left tongue depressor. What you do, you ask the patient to open the mouth, and here you ask the patient to breathe through the mouth. You press the cheek laterally like this. You examine the gingivo-buccal sulcus, gingivo-labial sulcus, again this side is gingivo-buccal sulcus. You examine the retromolar trigone, you examine the soft palate, you will examine the movement of the soft palate. You can touch the posterior pharyngeal wall and examine the gag reflex, and you can see the tonsillar fillers anterior pillar, posterior pillar, and after you have examined all the parts, you can also do a digital palpation of any suspected part for to notice if there is presence of any induration or not. Now this then comes this laryngeal mirror. See, there is no curve in here. It is a straight one. Again, you hold it in a pen-like fashion. You need to hit the mirror surface, and after you have heated the mirror surface, you take a gauge piece like this. You ask the patient to protrude the tongue, breathe through the mouth. You elevate the upper lip like this so that it doesn't collapse. You push the uvula backwards, and you see the inside the hypopharynx and the larynx. So two part is important. One is hitting the mirror or dipping it in a anti-fogging solution like Savlon. You hold the tongue and you ask the patient to breathe through the mouth. Then comes the examination of the neck. The neck is examined for presence of any thyroid or any other swelling, and for the lymph nodes in the neck. Lymph nodes, it is best to examine by standing behind. You ask the patient to flex his mouth, neck, or to rotate to any one side that you want to examine, and individual level of lymph nodes are examined one after another. Starting from submental, submandibular, jugular-digastric, level 3, level 4, supraclavicular, and posterior triangle lymph nodes. Similarly, on the opposite side also, you rotate the head to the opposite side, you stand to the back, and you may examine all the lymph nodes. This finishes our clinical examination of a patient.